So Dwayne Haskins was a guy who got a lot of criticism last season. He had his moments where he definitely did not play too well, without a doubt. Or I guess I should say the offense that Washington was in did not perform very well. He was obviously the quarterback, so he's going to get the most blame. But personally, I have not given up faith on Dwayne Haskins. I really haven't. For one thing, he turns 23 in just a couple of months, so he's still a very young player. He looked very young at times out there. But I thought that he had some moments where he looked pretty well, actually. And so let's get into some positives of Dwayne Haskins' career so far. Like, let's take a look at this play, for example. It's going to be a cover one hole that they're going up against, and for the Redskins, that's a pretty solid situation. They have a receiver running a quick curl route right over there. It's a good route against this type of coverage, can absolutely gain some yards. And after the ball is snapped, there is a window, but not a huge window. It's pretty good coverage, so this is going to take a very accurate pass, and it's also going to have to get there very quickly. So this is definitely a tough throw for Haskins to make. But watch this throw. First, watch the zip on it, how he gets there so quickly, and then also it's a very accurate pass on that one. Just a good athletic play. You know, if I was talking about this guy as a college prospect, I'd be saying he has great arm talent, and he really does. I mean, that's one thing that I do love about Haskins is his arm talent. I think that, you know, physically he's as good as many guys in the NFL, and better than a lot of guys in the NFL at that part of the game. I also like this play where it's going to be a cover 3 zone. One slight thing you're going to see is that those two Philadelphia players they're swapping zones right here. The reason why they're moving around like this and they're rotating zones is because Washington has a player in motion. Since there's a player in motion now, they don't want to give away that it's going to be, you know, if this is man coverage, for example, it's pretty simple. You just have somebody run straight down. But since it's zone coverage, you kind of have to rotate like this. But this is actually good news for Washington. Against zone coverage, what they want to do is have their halfback run like that because it's going to be play action. But then what they're going to do is they're going to have a receiver run right there. Hopefully, Philadelphia players will move in due to the play action. Haskins can throw over them, hit the receiver who's running behind them, and you can pick up some yards that way. That's the way this play is designed to work. Nothing too fancy, and take a look at what happens right when the ball is snapped. You look, and there is a receiver who's open, but he's not wide open. I mean, there's Philadelphia players in front of him and behind him, so this is going to be a tough throw for Haskins to make. However, Haskins is going to play this one perfectly, where he realizes that, listen, I want to try to make this throw at the best possible moment. So I'm just going to wait a split second, then make the throw. The window's a lot bigger than he is able to make that completion. And then, of course, Terry McLaurin kind of does what he does. He makes the safety miss and is able to run the rest of the way for a touchdown. But that was also in part because of Haskins, because of his accurate throw. It gave McLaurin a chance to make the play after he made the catch, and he was able to move around that safety. So, again, it's kind of giving your playmakers a chance to make a play. Really good play by Haskins on that one. Perfectly timed and perfectly accurate, and he got the ball there quickly. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that on that play. Haskins is interesting because if you look at his numbers, he had some just atrocious games. You know, his first game, he had a passer rating of 32.8, his second game of 40.0. But he definitely had some much better games as the season went on. He then went 86, 79, another bad one at 47, 69, 74. So it's like, okay, mediocre-ish, maybe still subpar, but not a disaster after those first two games. But then from week 14 and 15, his passer ratings was 121.3 and 143.2. Those two games, he completely shot up and had some really good games. Granted, he only threw the ball 28 times and 15 times in those two games. The second one was the one that he got hurt in, so he didn't finish that game. But he played really well in that 2-week stretch, I thought. Like, this play was one of those games where what's going to happen is that it's, again, going to be zone coverage, and what Washington is going to do is they're going to have their number one receiver run a deep route that eventually curls to the middle of the field to try to get the Philadelphia player who's in charge of covering that zone to run further deep and further towards the middle of the field. Because then what they're going to do is have a man in motion up to that side of the field who he's then going to run sort of into the flat area. So now the Eagle who is in charge of covering the flat is going to move a little bit further in. So then they can send a number two receiver like that. This will already be in a gap in coverage for a minute, but it's going to make that gap in coverage even bigger due to the other two routes, and this could allow for it to be an even bigger gap in coverage. This goes back to the football as a team sport, and everybody running their route well will make the window just that much bigger for Haskins to make a throw through. See, like as you see, without a doubt, there are plenty of Philadelphia players who are in the area on this one. So this isn't a huge window necessarily. There's a lot of guys, but at the end of the day, there still is a window. You look at that player right there, Haskins can absolutely try to make this throw, and he is going to try to make this throw. And not just that, but he makes an absolutely perfect throw. It's exactly where you want it to be, use the sideline. You can throw it in that direction if you want to. That's what he did, and they were able to get a big completion. And, Redskins fans will tell you that every time you watched Haskins play, he would make one or two jaw-dropping plays that make you go, okay, now I see why we spent a first-round pick on this guy, because he can make a throw like that. And that's kind of what I say. And as a rookie, I'm more interested in just what do you do well. I care less about what do you do poorly. I trust that if you get a few years into the NFL, you'll be able to fix those things. I want to see you do some things well, and Haskins absolutely does some things very well. I also think it has to be mentioned that Haskins was in kind of a terrible situation last year. He just was. This is one of my favorite plays that Haskins had to have just been so frustrated, where it's going to be a cover 3 zone, and this is actually going to be a 3rd down and 10 situation. And so, for the Redskins, one route that they have in particular they're going to look to try to get this ball to is going to be that route. It's a curl route just past the first down marker, so they can potentially get the first down if they throw it in that direction, and it's going to be in a gap in coverage. So, pretty much it checks off all boxes here. And as you see, once the ball is snapped, there is a window. It's not a huge window, but there is a window where Haskins can try to make this ball through, and he's going to take this chance. He is going to fire it in that direction. But his receiver ends up running further in. If he just stayed back, he had the first down. And listen, I get it. They say go attack the ball, but sometimes you have to not do that, and that was one of those times where if he just stays back, there was enough space. It wasn't going to be an interception, and it could have been a first down. Instead, he runs further in, which allows for them to make a tackle, and they don't get the first down on that play. And that's one of those, it's frustrating for Haskins, I imagine, because he made the play that should have gotten them the first down, but his receiver just ran too far in. Like, you ever play Madden and you throw it to somebody, and then that player, accidentally runs, 8 yards further back, and you're like, no, why are you doing that? I wanted you to run forward. That's kind of what that play reminded me of a little bit. Not quite to that degree, but definitely a little bit. Now, in fairness, one thing that has to be mentioned is that I do think that Haskins, he obviously struggled at times. One thing that I thought he really struggled at was getting protection for himself, just helping out his offensive line, helping out his protection. I think it's something he has some work to do on. What's happening right here is that the Buffalo Bills are showing blitz, and what currently is going to be happening right here is that the guard and the center are in charge of making sure that they block those two Buffalo players. And so for Haskins, basically the play right now is that his halfback is looking to block that Buffalo player if he is rushing the passer. And this isn't a terrible idea. This is something that you can do. But the problem with it is that there actually is another Buffalo player who's just off screen right now who is also lined up as though he could be rushing the passer. So because of that, the better blocking concept would just be this. Basically, everybody makes sure that they block the person in front of them, and then just you have the halfback be in charge of blocking the Buffalo player who's off screen right now. That's what Haskins probably should have done, told his offensive line and his halfback to make sure that they do once he saw what the coverage was. At the end of the day, you are the field general. You are the one who has to realize these things, but it is tough for a young player to realize those things. See, because look, after the ball is snapped, the halfback runs up to block who he was supposed to block, but one problem is that just now you have a center who has nobody to hit because the person that he was assigned to block dropped back into coverage. And even worse, now you have a Buffalo Bills player running straight through. So, this is the problem, is that despite the fact that Buffalo only has 5 guys rushing the passer and you have 6 people blocking, so this should be a good thing, now you're in a situation where you still have somebody getting completely free to the quarterback. So Trey White gets completely free to Haskins. He's able to make a sack. Good play by him, fine. But it was avoidable if Haskins just realized the situation and adjusted the blocking properly. It's something that people don't really talk about in terms of the quarterback position, but it is important. It's something you have to be better at. if Tom Brady is there, there's no way that Trey White is getting free to Brady. It just doesn't happen. So, again, if you want to blame the halfback, you want to blame the offensive line, you can. But to me, I think that's Haskins or the coaching staff. It's a combination of both, honestly, but definitely something Haskins will try to improve on year 2. Personally, I have faith in Haskins. One thing I have heard people talk about is, should they move on from Haskins? Should they pull an Arizona Cardinals and then move on from Haskins and decide to draft another quarterback? I just think that would be really silly. I think you have Chase Young on the board. I think Haskins, honestly, I would probably rather have than any other quarterback who's in this draft. Maybe Tua. I think that's an interesting one, just because the only reason I'm worried about Tua is the injury history. But I would rather have Haskins than Herbert. And so, I don't know. I think if I'm the Redskins, don't do anything silly. Draft Chase Young. Trust that you can get Haskins to be better next year. And you know what? If he sucks next year, well, then now you know you can draft the guy next year. And that's supposed to be a better quarterback draft class anyways. But whoever knows of that stuff, to be honest. So that's just my opinion. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.